Hey guys, welcome. My name's Rez. I'm a generalist freelance artist, and today I'm going to do an isometric concept art of this stylized alchemist hut. I'll be uploading many more videos with more time lapses and commentary, but hopefully I can walk you through my thought process, the way I go about doing things, and hopefully that helps you achieve the same thing. So enjoy. In the early stages here, I get down a couple rough sketches. Now, this isn't so much to generate an idea, as I am drawing from my imagination. I don't have a client I'm working for, and so I've already got an idea. It's more so just to get my brain going, see the kind of vibe I like, get the pen to paper, start moving, and just get a general idea of what I want the final result to be. If this was client work, it is important to generate sketches, thumbnails, and ideas like this with variations for the client to look at, see what they're happy with and what they want to move forward with. And that's up to you to be able to communicate those ideas clearly, and that's easiest to do in this early stage where things are still very rough. You'll notice right here that I'm starting off with primitive shapes. Now, I could go straight into doing the complex shape of the roof, the shape of the house and all that kind of stuff, but while I do have a general idea of what I want, I'm still not exactly sure on the final, and I need a good foundation to build on. Now, it's much easier to imagine these primitive shapes in space than it is a more complicated shape. So I like to put down these foundations, these cubes, these cylinders, to then be able to visualize within them the shape that I'm almost carving out. This makes it a lot easier for me. Everyone has different ways of doing this kind of stuff. But especially with isometric, I think it's a lot easier to keep track of the perspective if you have these primitive shapes in place, kind of guiding the way. You can see here as I start putting in details like the chimney, it started off very blocky. And this is where my imagination and drawing from my head wasn't quite enough to achieve the feeling that I wanted to achieve, and so I pulled up some reference, as I think is extremely important to do. In this case, it was Howl's Moving Castle, and a few other Ghibli artworks, and stuff from other artists that I thought achieved the style that I was kind of going for. This step of pulling up this reference, of relying on things like references, not to a point where you're copying them one for one, but you allow them to inspire you, I think is extremely important, especially if you have a style or an idea in mind and you're not quite sure how to achieve it, or you don't have the visual library to do so. This is also why it's important to draw so many different things. When you're practicing, sketch just everything you can and build up that visual library so you can pull from your mind, and you don't have to rely as much on the references. Either way, the references are extremely important to use. Things like the tiles here really helped me achieve the style that I was going for. You'll see in a moment the form and the way that I've tiled them out gives it this cartoony, Ghibli kind of look that I think really sells the style. Another thing you'll notice is that alongside the sketching and the line work, I'm actually creating these dark spots and shading in, and really getting some of that form in early, getting some of those shadows in early at this stage, to give the thing a bit of a 3D presence in the space. And also I think it lends itself to that stylized look a lot more, without having to do any color or values or anything like that. But in doing so, in later stages, when I do add some color, it'll immediately kind of all come together, and have this 3D structure to it, which I can then take further with the color and with the values. Now, the addition of things like the boiler out the back, the water wheel, the little open windows, all of these serve a purpose of making the building feel like someone really lives there. In this case, in my head, I had the idea of an alchemist, kind of a hermit figure that had created this place and created his little boiler and his piping systems and all this stuff. And it's a bit of a narrative to tell, and you have to figure out how to tell that visually. So all these little details, these little hints, the smoke coming out of the chimney makes it really feel alive and feel lived in. And you'll see later on, I also create a portion of the interior, a sketch of the interior, just to show that it is a real living space, and that a character could go there and fit in there perfectly fine, and kind of keep that in my mind while I'm designing the thing as a whole. At this point, I've removed the primitive shapes because I've got the major forms down, the structure down, and I move on to the tower. Now, at first, I wasn't sure kind of what I wanted the tower to look like. I started with these metal plates, then I was thinking stone, and then to fit the narrative, I kind of wanted it to look like it was haphazardly put together, or at least built over time and maybe use different materials to do it. So a portion of the tower is stone, a portion of it is wooden planks, and to sell that and to show those textures off, I've used different shapes and just line work, no color, nothing crazy, but that's a thing to learn in itself, is how to use these little lines and little bits of scratchiness and detail to show off different textures, to inform later how to build up those materials. Now, at this point, when I move on to the roof, it felt like nothing I did was really working. Sometimes after working on something for a while or looking at it for too long, it just feels off, seems off. You can't quite get it to look right. There was a couple times I stepped away, had a break, which I highly recommend doing as well. And that kind of let me come back and look at it a little bit differently. On top of that, I was ready to erase any part of it that I need to and start again. And so this shape that I originally had for the roof just wasn't working. So I completely got rid of it and I went for a more square or pyramid-like shape, which I ended up way happier with. So the lesson in that is sometimes to just let go of whatever idea is in your head, and build up something else that works. This would have been better to do in an early stage when it was a rough sketch, but at any point it's okay to go back and fix those little things up. At this point, I'm pretty happy with the sketching and the line work, and I think the thing's coming together as a whole, so I'm ready to move on to color. Now, the way I do color is that I block everything in. I like to segment the house or whatever it is I'm working on into different shapes or different sections and get all the base colors on there. I feel that I work best with painting light. So I'll take my base colors once they're all on there and everything feels cohesive, and I'll darken it all down. Once it's darkened down, I can go in and I can imagine a light source. Somewhere with a strong directional light is typically what I like to go for. And thanks to the sketching and the shading that we did with the line work earlier, it's very easy to imagine the form and where that light would hit and the kind of areas it would catch. And that way I can paint them in and paint in some of the shadows as well. Once I've got that general lighting in, I go back for some of those stronger highlights. This is to really make it pop, to get some more detail in. Maybe I paint in some shadows, even though the majority of the shadows will be done with the colors that I did earlier and the way I darkened it down. But some of those stronger shadows, some of those stronger highlights, I like to get them in. Stuff like the interior light glowing, anything like that at this stage. This is my favorite part, to be honest. At this point, I was very happy with the piece, and as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to do a bit of an interior sketch. Again, this was for concept purposes, something that I could maybe take further later. I also wanted the space to feel like someone was living there and someone was using it, and so I wanted to design it in a way where it had this interesting interior that you could kind of scan over and look at all the little details and really make it feel alive, which I think was pretty important to me with this piece. I like the idea of giving it this fantastical feel and having this little table of alchemy and all these strange little segments that he would spend time in and build up and give it some personality and some character. And even though these are just rough little sketches, I think it really helps tell the story. I think it does help having an image of the interior of the building and not just the exterior, even if I'm never going to use it in anything or never show the interior in anything. It's, I think, makes the concept as a whole a lot stronger. And there it is. I'm pretty happy with how it came out as a whole. I think it really achieved both the style I was going for and the fantastical kind of nature of it. Yeah, I'm super happy with how this one turned out. I hope you guys enjoyed watching and learned a thing or two. If you did, like and subscribe. That'll help me out. And hopefully many more of these to come where I can kind of commentate the process of things. They'll be a lot different. I do a range of environment art to character art to concept art. Isometric is a very unique one for me. It's not something I do very often, but I hope you guys enjoyed anyway. So thanks for watching.